welcome to my sewing room. We have a very wonderful and fun show for you today. We're going to make quick and easy gifts. There are a couple of projects that even your children and your grandchildren that might be watching the show would like to do. The first one I want to show you is this absolutely precious little church doll. She is so sweet, and she's used all kinds of machine embroidery, although you could use regular embroidery. We have corded double needle pin tucks that match the colors in the embroidery. In this one, it's green. And then if you're going to take a little gift to a baby shower and you know the baby's going to be a little boy, you might take this little blue church doll along for the mom. Now then, this is the easy project that you can make for a man, and very few times do we ever show things that can be made for a guy, and this is so easy that your children or your grandchildren might like to make one of these for dad or granddad. This is a really sweet little picture frame with just ribbons glued down and pretty little ribbons on the side, ribbon rosettes, a very easy and also a very inexpensive project to make. And this little project right here, I'm not going to even tell you what it is because you're going to have to wait and guess what this project is. It is very interesting and it serves a very useful purpose. Actually, it's sort of a little cat. I will give you a hint. But when I show you how easy and wonderful this project is and what you do with it, you're going to be a little bit surprised. So stick in here with me and we're going to have a whole lot of fun making quick and easy gifts today. One of the things that I am very interested in is how to teach children to sew. I do have to brag just a little bit. My granddaughters, Morgan Ross and Bradley, are most anxious to learn to sew, and Morgan Ross has done a lot of hand stitching. And my two granddaughters who live in Africa, Sarah Joy and Rebecca, have both made a dress this summer. So I'm so happy to tell you that I, as a grandmother, I'm most anxious to develop some techniques and some really simple projects so you and I, as mothers and grandmothers, can help our little girls and some little guys too, if they'd like to sew, get interested in sewing. This is a project that I think either boys or girls would like to make, and it's really a nice pillow for dad. Very rarely do we have projects or anything that really is made for a man, and I can't imagine how any proud daddy or granddaddy would be to have the daughter or granddaughter or grandson make this for him. It's a pillow very easily constructed, and people, when you're working with teaching children anything, little children, it's so critical, I believe, to make it terribly easy so they'll feel a lot of success. This is an old tie. It doesn't have to be an old tie. It could be a new tie wrapped around a pillow, kind of scrunched and pushed. And by the way, all of this is stitched in place by hand, but this pillow is very easy. So let me share with you some of the techniques that I think are really important in teaching beginning children sewing. I think it's really critical just to stitch with straight lines. I think curves are very difficult to sew for tiny little hands that haven't practiced with the sewing machine that much. I think it's also very critical that you even put a piece of tape down on the machine and call that the no-touch zone. I really would not teach a child at the very beginning to thread a sewing machine. I think that's too difficult. I would thread the machine, and I would beg of you to stay with a child every second when they're at a sewing machine because they can run fingers under a sewing machine. But this is an easy project. Okay, I've got 2 square pieces for the pillow, the Silk Dupioni pillow. Now personally, you could use pins, of course, to pin it together, but let's make it easy if we're working with children sewing. So I'm going to take some temporary spray adhesive. Now I'm not going to take it here because this one's already stitched, but I'll take temporary spray adhesive, kind of glue it together where it won't slip and slide and there won't be any pins for the child to possibly touch his or her finger. Then we're going to simply straight stitch the two right sides to right sides. We're going to just straight stitch all the way around the pillow and leave a little opening. You notice I've cut off the corners here so it will turn nicely. Then I'm going to turn the pillow right side out and stuff it. And then we're ready to have the fun of embellishing the pillow that we're going to make for Dad or Grandpa. All right, here we go. Let's tie the tie. Slip it over the corner, and you can use pins as I have done here and kind of shape it up and around with pins. But once again, I think putting pins in sometimes is a difficult thing for a child to do. So rather than using pins, why not use this temporary spray adhesive, spray it down. It's kind of gluey, but it all goes away. And it won't hurt, and it is, by the way, it's environmentally safe. And I'm going to kind of glue that tie down. Now, I've already started gluing up here because this tie is pretty long. I started gluing a little piece up there, and then I'm going to come in here, and you see your child or your grandchild can just shape it any way they want to. And I'll put a little more glue under here, and then I might turn the tie around this way. And another thing that would be fun to do on this tie, by the way, then you have to go back and stitch it down by hand. But hand sewing is usually pretty easy for kids. Let them start out first by learning how to sew on buttons by hand. And then they can come around and tack. And you say, oh, well, what if it isn't perfect? Well, please don't try to make it perfect. It will be so precious if those sweet little hands just come in here and sew it. Any little hand sewing stitch they know how to do, it will be even more treasured than if it were quote unquote perfect, whatever that may mean. Now then, another fun thing to do, and children love embroidery units on sewing machines. They just love them. My little granddaughter Rebecca, who lives in Africa, that's her favorite thing about sewing. See, she's only 6 years old. Sarah Joy, who's 7, really loves the sewing process more because she's a year older. But why not let your little child go ahead and embroider the present? If it's for Grandpa Bill, go ahead and put Grandpa Bill, made by Rebecca, and then put the date it was made, or Happy Father's Day, or Happy Birthday. What a sweet treasure. Now, I told you we have the mystery object over here. Let's have some fun, and this will be another great project for your children or your grandchildren. Not exactly like it is here. This is a cute little cat. It's really an arthritis cat, and it's a little cat with a little cat head and ears kind of at the middle and legs, and it is filled with none other than rice. And you can use any fabric that you want to use, sew it up, fill it loosely with rice, and then you know what you do with this? Put it around your neck, and for those days when you've been sewing all day or working on your computer at work or just basically smocking, a lot of times my shoulders get really tired when I do a lot of handwork. Just get this kind of warm, now not too hot, put it in your microwave, and then it really is great warmth for your shoulders. Now, if I were going to let my children or my grandchildren make this, well, not my children, they're grown, my grandchildren, instead of, here's the shape of this cat. It has, you see, it has a lot of really big curves. I mean, a really, really tough curve. I don't think a child could turn that curve real easily. I would make it just a long, straight piece. Sew a straight seam down here, a straight seam down here, down here, stop, turn it, and then stuff it with rice. And once again, if you're so fortunate as to have an embroidery machine, you might let them embroider for whom it is made, or simply just put a really fun embroidery, put a frog on it, or put whatever they like to embroider. And those are two great projects to get your children to beginning to love to sew. And now then, I have a really nice craft for you that is another project that a child could do. This is a wonderfully easy craft to make, and also one that your children and your grandchildren would enjoy making too, for all of their teacher presents or mommy presents or for whomever. This beautiful little picture frame is purchased with the roses on it. This is a little clear see-through ribbon, and these are little purchased rosettes. The little frame, you can purchase at any discount store, looks like this, and of course it's all ready to put a picture in. It has a little stand on the back. Now this ribbon I think is really pretty. It's kind of a see-through ribbon and ombre colors. It goes to different shades of pink. So I'm going to come in, and remember, when I'm working with my children and my grandchildren, I want to use a glue that will wash out, so there won't be any big disaster if they spill something. Remember, don't get upset. Children are children. They're going to spill. You know what? I spill sometimes too. So I just use things that will wash out. I'm going to put my ribbon down on this side. I'll just come right in here very, very easily. Put the ribbon down on this side, simply glue it down. And then I'm going to take a longer piece of ribbon and come in here and make some little extra loops along here where I can have some little ribbon that sticks out around the bottom, and bring some loops around. And then after putting those loops, I'm simply going to place these little purchase ribbon rosettes, and once again, I'm going to glue them down. And then I have a really sweet little picture frame. What a nice gift to give, and how much fun it was to do it. Some of my happiest childhood memories absolutely center around my making Christmas stockings with my mama and my Aunt Chris, and about making doll clothes. And now doll clothes are a little harder to make. When you're starting with a very young child, probably doll clothes would not be where I'd start unless you do it like I did. Get a piece of fabric, cut a hole in there for the head, pull it down over the doll's head, pull it around the arms and tie it with a string around the waist. That was what I loved, and that's what I call doll clothes. But some of my happiest memories are making crafts and doing some very easy sewing with my mama and my Aunt Chris. Why don't you make some of those memories yourself? Now, let me share with you a beautiful quilt square. This quilt square is one of my very favorites. This technique is called French waterfall. As you can see, it just reminds you of a French waterfall using French laces. It has 3 colors. The center color is a beautiful green Swiss batiste with machine embroidery in the middle, the scalloped or scalloped lace, whichever way you pronounce it, double needle pin tucks. But do you see we've now moved to blue Swiss batiste, more scalloped lace, and then beige Swiss batiste. Now, putting together 3 colors like that sometimes frightens people. Therefore, I'm going to show you how easy it is to shape lace and how to do a French waterfall. Now then, to shape curved lace, I'm working on a board. I'm going to take my glass head pins. As you can see here, I'm going to come around, put the pins on the big side of the curve. I'm going to come around here and put a pin right here. Now when I come to a miter, that's very easy to do also. And by the way, this is the easy way. Pin at the top, pin at the bottom, fold it back on itself, remove the bottom pin which goes through 2 layers, bring it up and start pinning again. Now then, French laces have an automatic gathering thread built into them. I went in there and pulled that gathering thread and my lace lays down perfectly. Now then, as you can see over here, I have already shaped the lace on the green piece of Swiss batiste. So I'm simply going to zigzag, and some people say, Martha, do you have to always use wing needle work when you're doing lace shaping? Absolutely not. Many times I do not use wing needle because, to tell you the truth, it takes a good bit longer to do that. If you want to just zigzag to shape, to stitch your laces down, it's absolutely beautiful. And many of my dresses, I simply have a very quick and easy zigzag to shape the laces down. All right, now then, let's go on because I have several other things I want to share with you. Now, we've already gotten the green piece done in the middle. How does the green piece attach to the blue piece? Well, it's very simple. You take the green piece, which is already fixed, and I've trimmed it away. I simply lay it down on a solid blue piece of fabric, and then I'm going to come in here and zigzag or wing needle entredot, whichever one you want to do, and I'm going to come back in, and then you see how that's a peekaboo? I will trim away the blue piece of fabric from behind there, and now it's time to come in and do my lace on the blue piece of fabric. So here's what we do next. We put the lace on the blue piece of fabric, and then we stitch, we zigzag it down, put the lace on the blue piece of fabric, trim it away. You can see I have to trim it away, and then my next shade is ecru, so I'll put an ecru strip of fabric underneath here. Pin it down, and then here is my final pillow, which when everything is trimmed with the 3 different colors of the French waterfall, and I just simply add 1 piece at a time. And now then, I'm going to share with you how to make those precious dolls, the little church dolls I showed you at the beginning of the show. I just love this little church doll. Can you notice that she even sits up? Now there's a reason she can sit up. But by the way, look at her little embellished skirt, her little bonnet, and as you can see, her little eyes. Let me pull her bonnet back here. Her little eyes are just 2 little dotted, little ink dot and a little ink dot and a little bit of rouge on her face. Now then, the doll dress is a little more complicated, and probably if you're doing children that can sew, you're working with teaching your children, your grandchildren how to sew, the dress they might need a little help with. But this is sort of a medium level doll. It really isn't very difficult to do. Okay, here's the way the little doll looks after you make her before you dress her. Now let me show you how easy this one is. You trace off the arms and the legs and the body, and then this is the little part that she sits down on. Now this is the easy part. How do you make these doll pieces, the doll parts, very easily? You put 2 pieces of fabric together, muslin, stitch all the way around, and then after you do your stitching, you can cut it out. Now, why did we stitch it first? Well, that just simply makes it easier. Stitch, stitch, and then cut it out, leaving an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then you can turn it right sides together. Now that's the way you do the arms and the legs. Now on the doll body, you stitch down here. Leave this open because that's going to be attached to that circle. Leave this open. I'll tell you why in just a minute. Then stitch all the way around, and then you leaving a 1/8 inch seam allowance, cut it out. Now the reason that we left two sides open, I've got to put the round circle on the bottom of this doll so she'll have a place to sit. Now why did I leave this open after I turned it? First of all, I stuff all of this part with cotton. Now I left this part unstuffed. I'm going to use doll pellets and stuff in the bottom, because then after I hand sew the arms and legs on, she can actually sit up, and those doll pellets in the bottom make that possible. Then I hand sew on the arms and the legs. Now come on over here and let's just see how easy it is to make this precious little dress for the doll. First of all, trace off on fabric the doll dress and the trims, and then I'm going to put my double needle pin tucks. I'm going to move over and do a little wing needle entredot. This is really Baby Daisy entredot, and since it uses a wing needle, I'm going to need to put some stabilizer behind. All right, then I'm going to stay stitch all the way around the little doll dress. Then I'm going to cut it out, gather some lace, just zigzag it down around the neckline. Now these little sleeves are really cute. First of all, I put lace on the bottom, and then I'm going to do wing needle entredot or Baby Daisy entredot, either one, on the bottom. I also this time have a paper stabilizer behind here, and then I'll gather the top of the sleeve. Next comes the brim of the bonnet. A little bit of lace is stitched on the inside. I'll stitch all the way around, turn it right side out. This little piece is the back of the bonnet. Now I have just zigzagged the bottom of this, and I'm going to gather it up on the bottom to fit the back of my little doll's neck. I'm going to stitch the brim of the bonnet on, and then I'm going to stay stitch the back and put two little ribbons, and my bonnet is finished. Let's see about making the skirt and putting this dress together. First of all, I love to use my machine embroidery. You could use hand embroidery. You could simply do nothing on the skirt. You could just, or you know what else you could use? You could use an antique tea towel, some antique linens. In this case, I have simply done double needle pin tucks all the way around the outside. I can put several rows. And now what I've done here, I'm going to show you in just a minute. I have two finished pieces of fabric, one of them embellished, and I have the water-soluble stabilizer behind there. I'm going to do a maybe sort of faggoting in between those in just a minute by using a serpentine stitch. Here is the way I'm going to hem my skirt. The first hem, I'm going to simply use a machine wing needle Baby Daisy entredot, and then the technique I'm going to show you in just a minute, I'm going to have another finished piece of fabric, and I'm going to do a serpentine or just a wide zigzag on that water-soluble stabilizer, and it makes a really pretty finish. And then I will finish up my little neckline, my little waist of my dress, and I will sew it on. Now, I told you a minute ago when I did this Baby Daisy wing needle entredot, I was just going to weave ribbon through that up and down, and then by weaving the ribbon through it, then I can pull it up, and I've got a cute little cuff for the dress. Now that faggoting to connect the two pieces is what I would like to show you now. I'm just working with what's called a patchwork stitch. You can use a wide zigzag, or you can use a serpentine stitch. But now see, I've got two finished edges together. I have water-soluble stabilizer behind here, and I have kind of glued them down, except you don't glue it with glue. You use it with that fabric glue. Now then, I'm simply going to guide where I'm going, and I'm going to use any kind of a decorative stitch that will hold it and just go over to one side and over to the other side. I bet you can see out the back just how pretty this is. And I have a stitch that's going to look a little bit as if it were hand faggoted. All right, I'm going to just stitch the two pieces together, and then I am now finished. Let me pull that out one more time and show you on this little dress. You see the look of the hand faggoting? Absolutely a sweet, sweet look. And now then, I have a little hint on the business of sewing for you. If you're going to start a sewing business, or if you already have a sewing business, one of the critical things you must do is get a mailing list. Mailing lists can be gotten many places, but I would ask your friends who buys products. If you're doing custom sewing, if you want to teach sewing lessons, you need to get mailing lists of people who might be interested in taking sewing lessons. Now, somehow or another, I would also get this mailing list into a computer. If you just a bulk mail program, you don't have to get a fancy program. And the next thing I would share with you is if you have 200 pieces, you can use bulk mail. And how do you find out how to do that? You make an appointment and go to your local post office and talk with a bulk mail specialist, and they will explain to you how to do that. And now then, won't you come along to my attic with me? This is a little slip that I think probably went under a christening dress about the 1870s or 1880s. You see how it has just a little strap that goes over the shoulder? I think this is really interesting, where the little ruffle comes down underneath the arm. Now this embroidery, if you look at it just real quickly, it looks like Ayrshire embroidery. However, it is a very early Swiss piece, and it is so beautiful you almost can't tell it from hand embroidery. Now coming down on the skirt, the technique is somewhat similar to the little blue doll dress I just shared with you, with the strips that are butted together, and instead of using the faggoting, these are just butted together with pieces of lace, 1, 2, 3, but that is a finished strip, just like the little blue doll dress I shared with you a few minutes ago. I have a sewing from the heart today from an organization called Threads of Love at First Presbyterian Church, P.O. Box 2006, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70821. And a friend of mine shared this with me, and I'd like to read a little bit about this ministry, which, by the way, you also can start a Threads of Love chapter. The seed for this ministry was planted in the fall of 1993 when a pediatrician from Earl K. Long Charity Hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, contacted the Reverend Russ Stevenson at First Presbyterian Church with a special request for help. She saw a need for tiny burial gowns for patients who were born prematurely and who were too sick or too tiny to survive. Regular newborn clothing is too large for these babies. Soon ladies joined the endeavor in making the little dresses. Someone gave a gift of $100. Then the only thing they needed to furnish to make the little dresses were thread and love. Thus our ministry, Threads of Love, was begun, reaching out and helping families say their goodbyes and help put closure to the loss of their little tiny baby. During a visit to Earl K. Long Hospital, the nurse supervisor of the neonatal care unit asked if we could make some tiny day gowns for their premature patients. Of course we said yes. Thus another phase of Threads of Love was begun. After the sewing is collected, a packet is made up containing a gown, blanket, cap, and the prayer. These are given to the local hospitals, and in turn, each mother who gives birth to a premature or sick baby is given this packet as a gesture of saying silently, God loves you and He is with you. Our goal is to have other chapters and places across America, wrapping these families in threads of love. Now this, once again, the address, and by the way, they do have patterns and other things you can use if you would like to form a chapter of Threads of Love, is Threads of Love, Post Office Box 2006, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70821. And there are many, many Threads of Love chapters all over the United States that have already been started. I am so glad that you joined me in my sewing room today, and I do thank you for coming. Won't you come be with me next time?